Natalie Holloway. On Monday, May 30th, 2005, a group of 124 seniors from Alabama were set to fly home after their 5-day graduation trip in Aruba. One girl never made the flight. Her bags were packed and her passport was still sitting in her hotel room. She was 18 years old. It would take another 18 years before the truth finally surfaced in a confession. Born in October 1986, Natalie Holloway was a brilliant honor student and National Honor Society member. She had a full preem scholarship to the University of Alabama waiting for her. Her mother Beth had remarried, while her father Dave worked as an insurance agent back in their home state. On May 26th, Natalie and her classmates landed in Aruba with their chaperones, checking into the Holiday Inn on Palm Beach. The last sighting of Natalie was around 1:30 a.m. on May 30th. She was leaving a nightclub with 17-year-old Joran Vanderloot and 2 brothers. Vanderloot later gave several conflicting stories about what happened after they left. First, he claimed they drove to a lighthouse. Later, he insisted he just left her on a beach near the Marriott. Every story fell apart. 50 Dutch Marines, F-16s with thermal sensors, and hundreds of volunteers joined the FBI to search the island. Over $3 million was spent, totaling 40% of the island's entire police budget. Vanderloot and the brothers were arrested twice, but by September 3rd, they were all released due to a lack of evidence. Prosecutors officially closed the case in December 2007. Natalie's body was never found. Born in the Netherlands, Goran Vanderloot moved to Aruba in 1990 while his father trained to be a judge. His mother described him as a compulsive liar with a dark habit of sneaking out to casinos. In February 2008, a journalist aired undercover footage. In it, Vanderloot claimed Natalie had a seizure and a friend dumped her body into the ocean. The report won an international Emmy. But soon, Vanderloot would strike again. On May 30th, 2010, exactly 5 years after Natalie vanished, 21-year-old Stephanie Flores was found beaten to death in a Lima hotel room registered to Vanderloot. He fled to Chile, but was caught and confessed on June 7th. He was sentenced to 28 years in 2012. In 2023, 18 more years were added for smuggling contraband inside the prison walls. The truth about Natalie didn't emerge until 2023. After an FBI sting caught him extorting money from the family lawyer, Peru agreed to his temporary extradition. On October 18th, 2023, standing before a federal judge in Birmingham, Vanderloot pleaded guilty. He finally confessed that Natalie kneed him after he tried to grope her, admitting he struck her with a cinder block before pushing her lifeless body into the sea. He received 20 years in federal prison to be served alongside his Peruvian sentence. Beth looked at him and said, "You are a killer. I want you to remember that every time that jail cell door slams." She noted his coldness, how he went home, checked soccer scores, browsed the internet, showered, and just went to school like nothing happened. Vanderloot is currently serving time in Peru, with a release set for June 2045. In late 2025, guards discovered him seriously injured after a suicide attempt. Natalie was officially declared dead in 2012. By then, her mother had already founded a resource center in her daughter's name. It took 18 years for a confession, involving a second victim on the same anniversary, and a body that remains missing to this day. In our next case, the body was found inside a suitcase buried in the woods. Chillingly, the killer went on another date before anyone even knew she was missing. Grace Mullane, on December 1st. In 2018, a 22-year-old British traveler on a world trip entered an Auckland hotel with a man she had just met on Tinder. It was the night before her 22nd birthday. She never left that room alive. Within hours, the man was searching for things like hottest fire and flesh-eating birds. Then, he simply went on another Tinder date. Grace Mullane was born in December 1996 in Essex. She was the youngest child of David and Gillian Mullane. She had just graduated with a degree in marketing. Her family remembered her as an adventurous girl who was always smiling. In October 2018, she started a solo world tour through South America before landing in Auckland on November 20th. On November 30th, she matched with Jesse Kempson on Tinder. They met on the eve of her birthday at 5:45 p.m. under the Sky City Tower. Security footage shows them both entering the elevator at the City Life Hotel at 9:41 p.m. A judge later concluded she died before 1:29 a.m., just as Kempson searched for the Waitakere Ranges. What he did next was chillingly calm. His phone history showed searches for the ranges and fire, all while he watched explicit content. He took photos of her body before 6 a.m., then searched for rigor mortis, carpet cleaner, and large bags to hide the evidence. After buying a large suitcase, he went on another Tinder date while Grace was still lying dead in his hotel room. It is truly hard to imagine how someone could be so cold and calculated. Her parents called the police when she didn't call home for her father's birthday on December 2nd. Kempson was arrested on December 8th. The next day, they found her body inside a suitcase buried deep in the Waitakere Ranges. The trial in Auckland High Court opened November 4th, 2019, before Justice Moore. 3 women who met Kempson on Tinder testified about his terrifying pattern of choking them during their encounters. One woman's story was almost identical to Grace's tragedy. The prosecutor described the killer's shifting accounts as a complex labyrinth of lies. The defense argued it was just a consensual act gone wrong, sparking future legal reform. After 5 hours of deliberation, the jury convicted him on November 22nd. On February 21st, 2020, Moore ordered life with 17 years minimum, calling his conduct depraved. The murder appeal was dismissed in 2020. By 2021, the Supreme Court refused to hear the case further. Kempson was later convicted of 8 more counts involving a former partner and another tourist from the app. He received 11 additional years concurrently. This predatory pattern started long before Grace. 3 other women had encountered him through that same dating app. Grace was the one who did not survive. Gillian told the court that Grace was more than a daughter. She was her best friend. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern issued a public apology on December 10th, 2018. "Your daughter should have been safe here, but she wasn't, and I am sorry." Grace's father died before the legal battle ever ended. Gillian and her cousin Hannah started the Love Grace charity. Both were awarded an OBE in the 2024 honors. This tragedy helped the UK ban the rough sex defense through the Domestic Abuse Act of 2021. Over $46,000 was spent on his legal aid. He will not be eligible for parole until approximately 2036. A Tinder match, a suitcase, and a law rewritten because of a hotel room. Now, we head to a lonely highway in the outback. The body was never found, and the killer is dead. This is the mystery of Peter Falconio. On July 14th, 2001, a couple in an orange camper van was driving along a lonely highway in the Northern Territory. A man flagged them down. He claimed their exhaust was sparking. Peter stepped to the back of the van with the stranger. His girlfriend, sitting inside, heard a single gunshot. The gunman appeared at her window with a pistol. She never saw Peter alive again, and his body remains missing. Peter Falconio was 28 years old, the third of 4 sons born to Luciano and Joan. They were a family from West Yorkshire. He was a student at the University of Brighton, who met Joanne Lees at a club in 1996. The couple left the United Kingdom in late 2000 for a world trip, finally arriving in Sydney in January 2001. On that July night, just north of Barrow Creek, the stranger tied Joanne's wrists with cable ties and forced a sack over her head. She escaped into the scrub and hid for 5 hours while the killer searched for her. She eventually flagged down a passing truck driver. Around midnight, police discovered a pool of blood on the dusty highway. The only physical evidence was unidentified male DNA found on Joanne's shirt, the cable ties, and the gear stick. The media was skeptical of her calm demeanor, much like the Chamberlain case. Her lack of emotion was actually caused by prescribed Valium. Bradley Murdoch was an outback drug runner fueled by amphetamines. He was known for his long, non-stop hauls across the country. He could drive thousands of kilometers at a time without ever stopping. After an accomplice named James Heppy informed on him, a DNA profile from Murdoch's own brother matched the evidence on Joanne's shirt. Murdoch was arrested in 2002 on other charges and sent to the Northern Territory. His trial finally opened in Darwin in 2005. The DNA found on that shirt was 150 quadrillion times more likely to belong to Murdoch than any other person. An elastic hair tie belonging to Joanne was found in Murdoch's gun holster. Investigators described it as a trophy. The defense argued the DNA was transferred innocently at a restaurant where both people had eaten. The theory died when it turned out Murdoch was allergic to chicken. On December 13th, the jury found him guilty. Chief Justice Martin gave him life with 28 years minimum, calling the murder an act of extreme cowardice. His 2007 appeal failed. Murdoch eventually died of throat cancer in July 2025 at the age of 67. He spent his final weeks refusing to cooperate with anyone. Police stated it was deeply regrettable that Murdoch died without ever disclosing the location of Peter Falconio's remains. A March 2026 inquest revealed what happened on July 9th. Detectives brought a video from Peter's parents to Murdoch's hospital bed, begging for the location of their son. He snapped at them to get out. He gave them nothing. His parents said a weight had been lifted after he finally passed away. In June 2025, the reward was doubled to $500,000. They hoped someone close to Murdoch would finally come forward. Peter's body has never been found. Joanne Lees later wrote that while Peter lost his life that night, she felt she lost hers too. A chicken allergy wrecked the defense. But the killer took the secret of the body's location to his grave. Our next case takes us to a Thai island, where the people behind bars might actually be innocent. The victims were Hannah Witheridge and David Miller. On the morning of September 15th, 2014, a beach cleaner on Koh Tao discovered the bodies of two young British tourists lying 20 meters apart. A blood-stained garden hoe lay nearby. Both victims were partially undressed. The botched investigation sparked global fury, leading to a 100,000 signature petition and a massive cyber attack on Thai government databases. Many people today believe the two men convicted of the murders are completely innocent. Hannah Victoria Witheridge was a 23-year-old postgraduate student from Norfolk, studying speech and language therapy at the University of Essex. 24-year-old David William Miller had recently finished his engineering degree. Flags flew at half-mast at his former school, Victoria College, in his honor. The pair met at Ocean View Bungalows and were last seen leaving the AC bar together, holding hands, shortly after 1 a.m. Miller died from head trauma and drowning. Witheridge suffered severe head wounds and injuries indicating she had been brutally assaulted. From the beginning, the investigation was compromised. Police moved the bodies before securing the scene, and the area was never properly blocked off. Tourists were seen walking right through the crime scene where the two bodies were found. Lieutenant General Panya Mammon named the AC bar manager and his nephew as suspects using security footage. Notably, the bar was owned by the village headman. Instead of following that lead, the general was suddenly transferred off the case. Police later claimed that Thai people wouldn't commit such a crime. The Prime Minister shockingly told reporters that female tourists would only be safe if they weren't beautiful. Zaw Lin and Win Zaw Thun, two 22-year-old migrants from Myanmar, were arrested on October 2nd, 2014. They confessed after interrogations using food vendors as interpreters. Then, they were forced to reenact the murders for the media in a highly public display. They later retracted those confessions, claiming they were beaten. They described freezing rooms, electrocution threats, and suffocation. Neither man had a lawyer during their initial questioning. Forensic expert Dr. Porntip Rojanasunan testified that the scene was a mess and that DNA on the hoe didn't match the suspects. The original DNA swabs were completely used up, making any independent retesting impossible. The entire case for the prosecution relied on evidence that could never be verified. A petition demanding an independent investigation gained over 100,000 signatures. In 2019, the UK National Crime Agency admitted to unlawfully sharing phone records. If you are following this story with me, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives. On Christmas Eve, 2015, the court in Koh Samui sentenced both men to death. The verdict triggered massive protests and a cyber attack that leaked 100 Thai databases. Despite this, the appeals court upheld the decision in 2019. The Supreme Court also upheld the convictions. Every legal avenue had been exhausted. On August 14th, 2020, the king commuted their death sentences to life in prison. The Miller family expressed gratitude to the king for his clemency. Both men currently remain behind bars at Bang Kwang Central Prison. In 2016, Zaw Lin told journalists, "If I killed anyone, I stay here. Why am I here?" I think about that all the time. One writer for the Bangkok Post noted that almost nobody believes these men actually murdered the tourists. A ruined crime scene and questionable confessions leave us wondering. But as we move to our next case, the killer's identity is no mystery. The killer confessed in his own statement. The real problem, however, was his explanation for Krista Chen's death. On July 9th, 2022, At a luxury Fiji resort costing $3,500 a night, a housekeeper went to check on a couple. They found the bride in a blood-splattered bathroom. She had been married for less than 5 months, and it was only the second day of their honeymoon. 36-year-old Krista Jing Chen Dawson was a recent pharmacy graduate who was working as a pharmacist at a Kroger in Memphis. Originally from Denver, she had been a pastry chef and bakery owner before deciding to return to school for her pharmacy degree. As an only child, Krista was her parents' entire world. Every hope and dream they had was tied to her future. She married Bradley Robert Dawson on February 18, 2022, after dating for only a few months. A wedding planner later revealed that the entire ceremony had been put together in just 26 days. Dawson was a 38-year-old IT specialist. Surprisingly, his attorney noted he had honeymooned in Fiji with a different wife just 2 years prior. They arrived in Fiji on July 7th and checked into the exclusive Turtle Island resort. They stayed in Villa 15, which cost roughly $3,500 per night. On July 8th, resort staff witnessed the couple arguing at the floating bar. A guest in the next cottage reported hearing loud banging and a scream around 12:40 a.m. on July 9th. After Krista was discovered, doctors ruled the death a homicide caused by traumatic brain injury. Her injuries were so severe that the morgue attendant feared the embalming process. The injuries were so devastating that the family's lawyer claimed embalming was physically impossible. Where was Dawson? He had paddled a kayak nearly 3 miles across open ocean to Madako Island in the dead of night. A local found him the next day. He was carrying his passport, license, and over $1,000 in cash. He had his and Krista's credit cards, but left his phone and GPS watch at the resort. He took what he needed to vanish, yet abandoned the very tools that could track his path. Police arrested him 36 hours later. At first, he flatly refused to provide a DNA sample. Who kayaks 3 miles through ocean swells at night with cash and a passport, but purposely leaves their phone behind. After 2.5 years in a Fiji prison, Dawson faced an 8-day trial before the High Court. He pleaded not guilty and refused to take the stand in his own defense. His lawyers argued Krista fell while drunk, but his own police statement, read aloud in court, tore that theory apart. Our argument moved toward the bathroom. Then Chris pushed me, and I just lost it. He claimed on December 19, 2024. The judge found him guilty beyond any reasonable doubt. On February 11, 2025, he handed down a life sentence, stating a joyous vacation had been turned into a horrific nightmare. Krista's mother told the court, "I can only hope the rest of your life is filled with misery, loneliness, and despair." "You are a monster," her father added. "She was my only child, my entire reason for living." A $3,500 a night resort, a daring kayak escape, and the killer's own words finally sealed his conviction. Now, let's look at a case where the husband walked free while others went to prison. This is the mystery of Ani Dawani. On the evening of November 13, 2010, a newlywed couple on honeymoon in Cape Town asked their driver to take them through a township after dinner. Within a single hour, the young wife was dead from a gunshot wound. The husband was found standing on the roadside unharmed, while the driver began cooperating with police. Soon, 4 men were convicted in connection with the killing. Prosecutors alleged the husband ordered the hit, yet he was acquitted before his defense even called a witness. Annie Nina Hindocha, born March 12, 1982 in Sweden, was a vibrant woman whose family had been expelled from Uganda during the Idi Amin era. She trained as an engineer and worked in marketing for Ericsson before moving to London in March 2010. She married millionaire Shrien Dawani on October 29, 2010, during a lavish ceremony held in Mumbai. Her cousin later testified that Annie was actually considering ending the marriage before the honeymoon had even started. They landed in Cape Town on November 7, 2010, toured a national park, and checked into their hotel. On the evening of November 13th, their driver, Zola Tongo, took them to a restaurant in Strand. Then they entered a township where gunmen hijacked the car. Tongo and Shrien were thrown out, unharmed. At 7:50 the next morning, Annie's body was found in the abandoned vehicle. She had been killed by a single gunshot to the neck and chest. In Tongo's statement, he claimed Shrien approached him and asked if he knew anyone capable of having a client taken off the scene. He offered 15,000 rand, or 1,300 pounds. Shrien later claimed this cash was for a surprise helicopter tour. Justice was swift for the conspirators. Tongo got 18 years in December 2010 and was paroled in June 2022. Another accomplice received 25 years in August 2012. One killer received a life sentence in November 2012, but died in prison 2 years later. Another man was granted full immunity despite lying under oath. Shrien flew home on November 17, 2010, and fought extradition for over 3 years, citing severe mental health issues. Extradited on April 7, 2014, he submitted a 37-page plea admitting, "I consider myself to be bisexual." Prosecutors then called Leopold Leiser, a man known as the German Master. As an escort, he testified that Dewani visited him 3 times, confessing he could not find a way out of the engagement without being disowned by his family. He later took his own life in September 2016. You and I have to ask, how do 4 people go down for a crime, but the alleged mastermind walks free? On December 8, 2014, before the defense even called a witness, the judge granted an application to dismiss the entire case. The ruling stated that Tongo's evidence was so improbable and filled with so many glaring mistakes, it was impossible to tell where the lies ended and the truth began. The prosecution didn't appeal, and the UK inquest was officially closed in October 2015. Now 46, Shrien lives in London with his partner and serves as a director for a care group. Annie's uncle, Ashok, later stated, "We accept he did not murder Annie, but he lied to us about his secret life. He truly owes us an apology." The family marked the 15th anniversary on November 13, 2025, still lacking the answers they have sought for over a decade. 4 convictions, 1 acquittal, and a family left without an apology. As you and I will see, the next case leaves no mystery. In this final horror, the killer's own daughters watched the crime unfold from a balcony on a cruise ship. Kirsty Maxwell. It was the evening of July 25, 2017. Deck 7 of the Emerald Princess cruise ship, sailing somewhere between Ketchikan and Juneau. In Alaska, this 39-year-old mother of 3 told her husband she wanted a divorce. He ordered their daughters away before the screaming started. From the balcony, those daughters watched their father straddling their mother and striking her head repeatedly. Many passengers heard the emergency calls but assumed they were part of a Sherlock Holmes mystery play being performed on board. It wasn't a play. Kirsty was a real estate agent and a university alumna from Santa Clara, Utah. A loving mother to 3 daughters, her close friends remembered her as the true light of their lives. They had left Seattle on July 23rd for a week-long cruise to celebrate 18 years of marriage. The family occupied connected suites on the Dolphin deck, sharing the space with Kirsty's father and brothers. After a fishing trip in Ketchikan, Kenneth drank heavily and forced himself on Kirsty during dinner. Around 8:50 p.m., back in the cabin, Kirsty demanded a divorce and told him to leave the ship. He kicked the girls out. Minutes later, they heard her scream, "Don't come in here!" From the balcony, they watched their father's fists slamming into their mother's head, again and again. Prosecutors later described how Kenneth used his fist like a hammer against his wife's face. Her family burst in to find her bloodied with severe head wounds. When asked why he did it, Kenneth simply said she wouldn't stop laughing. He then began dragging her body toward the balcony railing. He tried to throw her into the icy sea, but her brother grabbed her ankles, physically stopping the fall. If he had succeeded, the ocean would have likely swallowed her and every bit of evidence forever. It is hard to imagine someone trying that while their victim's own father watched from the doorway. Since it happened on a US-flagged ship, the FBI took over the investigation. The Emerald Princess skipped its next stop and sailed to Juneau, where 15 agents boarded the ship to conduct over 200 interviews before Kenneth was federally charged. He pleaded guilty in February 2020. A judge later sentenced him to 30 years in federal prison. The judge noted that the couple's daughters no longer have a mother. Her death's impact will echo through that family forever. His defense team argued he suffered from bipolar disorder and a low IQ while on Adderall. They claimed testosterone, opioids, and other pills, mixed with alcohol, created a lethal, perfect storm. But prosecutors pointed to years of domestic violence, punched walls, and broken appliances in their home. 6 weeks after his sentence began, on July 14, 2021, guards found Kenneth unresponsive in his Juneau cell at 6:59 a.m. He was dead within the hour. Officials ruled out foul play but kept the cause secret. His appeal died along with him. Within 4 years of that cruise, those 3 daughters were left with no parents at all. You and I are left with a tragic anniversary, a play hiding screams, and a killer dead just weeks later. Next, we will look at a daughter who killed her mother on vacation and stuffed her body into a suitcase. Sheila von Wiesemek. In August 2014, a taxi driver at a Bali resort was asked by a young couple to load a massive suitcase into his trunk. As they left, he saw blood leaking from the trunk. Security told him to drive straight to the police. Stuffed inside that heavy suitcase was the body of the young woman's mother. Sheila was 62, a college graduate who had once worked for Senator Ted Kennedy. She once boasted about pouring tea for the Kennedys. She was the widow of a famous composer. Police had visited the family home 86 times over nearly a decade of domestic calls. Her final email, sent that August, admitted she was more terrified than ever before. Sheila booked a first-class trip to Bali using reward points, even though friends begged her not to take her 19-year-old daughter, Heather Mack, along. Heather secretly used her mother's card to fly her boyfriend, an aspiring rapper, to the luxury resort. He checked in on August 11th. By the next morning, after drinking the minibar dry, he beat Sheila to death with a heavy metal fruit bowl handle. Prosecutors claimed Heather actually held her mother's mouth shut while the fatal blows were delivered. The autopsy confirmed she suffocated from a broken nose and neck caused by extreme blunt force trauma. Prosecutors say Sheila fought for her life, realizing in those final moments that her world was ending. She knew her only child was the one killing her. Phone records later revealed what the police called Bonnie and Clyde-style text messages. The couple used a coded greeting for the murder, while discussing their plan to inherit $1.5 million. Schaefer wrote about his hunger for wealth, claiming money rules everything. Heather replied that she finally had control over the person she called the witch. She admitted she was tracking her routine. All the while, a cousin back in Chicago was texting instructions on how to proceed. It is hard to imagine texting a cousin instructions on how to murder your own mother in a faraway hotel room. On April 21, 2015, the court convicted Schaefer of murder, giving him 18 years, while Heather received 10 for her role. Behind bars at Karabokan Prison, Heather gave birth to her daughter Stella on March 17, 2015. After her release in 2021, federal agents arrested her the moment she landed in Chicago. By January 2024, she was sentenced to 26 years in a federal facility. Her uncle, Bill Wise, believed she should never leave prison, stating that Heather had officially run out of second chances in this life. Currently, Heather is serving time with a release date in 2044. Meanwhile, Schaefer walked out of prison in February 2026. He was arrested mid-flight by the FBI and faced a judge on conspiracy charges that could keep him locked up for the rest of his life. His trial begins in 2027, while their cousin got 9 years. Young Stella has spent her childhood moving between different caretakers. Advocates say the child has no desire to be raised by her mother. It all started with a suitcase leaking blood. There was a taxi driver who alerted the police, and a daughter who viewed her own mother as an enemy. In our next mystery, a cheerleader was discovered under a cabin bed on a cruise ship. Her family did not even search for 17 hours. On November 7th, 2025, a housekeeper on the Carnival Horizon entered a room to clean and made a horrific discovery. Wrapped in a blanket beneath the bed was the body of an 18-year-old girl, hidden under a stack of life jackets. Her younger brother had slept just feet away from where she lay hidden. Incredibly, the rest of the family had not looked for her in 17 hours. The ship docked in Miami the next morning. FBI agents were waiting to board the vessel immediately. 18-year-old Anna Marie Kaptainer was a bright varsity cheerleader in Titusville. She was preparing to graduate with the high school class of 2026. Anna was an ambitious girl who loved the water and planned to join the Navy. She dreamed of becoming a police officer and working with canine units. She was the type of person who had her whole future planned out and the drive to make those dreams a reality. Her mother told reporters that her only focus now was getting justice for her young daughter. Anna had set sail on November 2nd for a 6-night Caribbean trip, along with her father, Christopher, and the rest of her family. The group included her stepmother, grandparents, and siblings. Anna ended up sharing a cabin with her biological brother and her stepbrother for the duration of the cruise. It was meant to be a fun getaway. On November 6th, Anna excused herself from dinner because she felt sick. No one in her family would ever see her alive again. Medical experts determined that Anna passed away on November 7th while the vessel was still in international waters. The official cause of death was ruled to be mechanical asphyxia. The certificate made it clear that her death was caused by another person. Reports suggested she was held in a chokehold that left bruising on her neck. Her aunt, Crystal, was certain that Anna fought back with everything she had. She was convinced her niece fought for her life. It remains a mystery how a girl disappears in a shared cabin without anyone noticing for 17 hours. Her stepbrother, Timothy Hudson, was soon named as the primary suspect in the case. This detail emerged during a separate legal filing in Florida that November. Security footage from the hallway confirmed that no strangers had entered or left the room during the night of the crime. This meant only the people staying inside the room had access. Court records show the stepmother telling her ex-husband that Timothy claimed to have no memory of the events. He simply repeated that he could not remember a thing. After refusing to testify and failing to get a gag order, the legal process moved forward. By February, young Hudson was officially charged as a juvenile. A judge soon ordered that he be tried as an adult. He was released on electronic monitoring to live with an uncle while awaiting the next steps. In March, a grand jury indicted him on charges of first-degree murder. The severity of the counts reflected the violent nature of the alleged crime. Both charges carry a maximum sentence of life in prison. Once the indictment was unsealed in April, prosecutors moved to put him back behind bars immediately. He is scheduled to appear for his arraignment in Miami on April 22nd. It is rare for the federal government to prosecute a juvenile. Anna's father insisted that the young man needs to be under arrest. He argued that since the suspect is now an adult, he should be in handcuffs and wearing a prison jumpsuit while awaiting trial. Friends and family gathered in late November to celebrate Anna's life at a local church in Titusville. They asked that she be remembered for her vibrant life, not her tragic end. It is a haunting tale of a cheerleader and a brother who claims he remembers nothing. One family cruise ended with the FBI boarding the ship, but the final case on our list is actually unfolding right now. The trial is still ongoing with no verdict yet, and the defense's story sounds disturbingly familiar to investigators. Kenzie Michalski. On the evening of November 4th, 2024, a 31-year-old nurse from Buffalo, New York, stepped into a famous ruin bar in Budapest, Hungary. On the final night of her solo birthday trip through Europe, she met a man. They talked for 90 minutes before heading to a club. Around 4 a.m., they walked to his apartment. She was never seen alive again. 5 days later, her body was found in a suitcase hidden in the woods, 145 kilometers away. Now, that man is on trial. Kenzie Elizabeth Michalski was born in January 1993 in Buffalo and was raised in the town of Fredonia, New York. After earning her nursing degree and master's, she became a nurse practitioner. She started her career in neurocritical care at Buffalo General Medical Center during a very difficult time. She worked in the medical ICU during the pandemic before moving to Portland, Oregon, to serve as a neurosurgery nurse practitioner at Providence St. Vincent Medical Center. Her friend Molly described her as the brightest person she had ever met. She had a magnetic and joyful spirit. Budapest was meant to be the final stop on her trip, a place her father, Bill, called her happy place. She had been traveling with her best friend, Gretchen, who had just left for Italy on November 4th. Kenzie decided to head out alone that evening into the Jewish Quarter, which is a famous party district in Budapest. At a ruin bar called Simple Kurt, she met a 37-year-old man from Dublin, identified in court documents only as LTM. They talked and moved to a nightclub before walking to his apartment early on November 5th, according to the official indictment from the prosecutor. During the encounter, the man allegedly tied her up and strangled her to death. He even took photographs. Afterward, he hid her body in a wardrobe and cleaned the apartment. He bought a suitcase, rented a car, and drove 145 kilometers to Lake Balaton, hiding the suitcase in a wooded area near Anthill Hill. Friends in the U.S. Embassy reported her missing on November 5th after she missed her flight and failed to check out. Budapest police tracked her on security cameras and arrested the man from Dublin outside an apartment on the evening of November 7th. He eventually confessed, claiming it was an accident. However, digital forensics uncovered his chilling searches regarding how to handle a dead body. He searched for whether pigs eat human remains, what a decomposing corpse smells like, and how reliable the local police in Budapest really were. You have to wonder, if he truly believed it was an accident, why was he searching for ways to hide a body? In November 2025, the chief prosecutor filed for a life sentence without parole, alongside a permanent deportation order for the suspect. He rejected a 12-year plea deal and pleaded not guilty to murder. While he admits to causing her death, he insists it was a tragic accident during a consensual encounter. The trial opened on February 13, 2026, before Judge Sable Fair at the Budapest Metropolitan Court. He testified that he had consumed a large amount of whiskey and around 10 beers on the night she died. Toxicology confirmed Kenzie was completely sober. Later, the judge denied his house arrest request, even after his family offered 50,000 euros in bail money. The trial is still continuing as of April 2026, and no final verdict has been reached. Bill and Jill Michalski learned their daughter was dead while flying to Budapest. At a vigil, her father told reporters there was simply no reason for this. He said he was still trying to understand the gravity of what happened to his daughter. Her friends now carry special travel tokens to countries all around the globe in her memory. That is everything from our side today. Thanks for watching. Check this out.